Okay, well today I'm interviewing Dr. Dick Reid from Naperville, Illinois. I wrote about him in Dentaltown this July, and Dick's claim to fame really is that he's had 43% overhead for the last 15 years in his office, which is an ungodly number. It's absolutely amazing, and that's why I ran the article. Dick is in Naperville again. He has 43% overhead. He's never really produced more than $800,000 in a year, yet over the last 15 years, Dick, you've been able to save 20% per year, and at age 56, basically you're very close to retirement. So what we're going to do today is go into more detail about what Dick has done over the years to emphasize more about what he's done versus what we had in the article. So Dick, first of all, I'd like to get some information about you. People are going to want to get in touch with you. Dick can consult with dentists. He actually would like to talk to dental societies, study groups, and larger conventions. So Dick, how can people get in touch with you first of all?
They can call my cell phone. My number is 630-800-6191.
Okay, and repeat that again.
800-6191. 630 area code.
Perfect. Okay, well Dick, you have a lot of comments about a whole bunch of different things, and once Dick gets going, it's hard to get Dick to stop. So I'm going to play the straight man here today. I'm going to ask questions of him. We have about 20 minutes that we can talk here. And Dick, I may interrupt you and go on to a different subject. I apologize for that in advance. So the first thing I'd like you to comment on, and we just talked about this beforehand, is dental school business education and what your feelings are about that.
Okay, when I went to school at Loyola back in the late 70s, 80s, we got virtually nothing on the business part of dentistry. And I felt really bad about that because you ask these young kids to pour their life ambition into the science of learning about dentistry, and you don't teach them anything about business. And it's imperative that you know what to do when you get out. You're going to spend all kinds of money trying to get there.
Okay. What do you think can help in dental school these days?
I think they should bring in guest lecturers, and that's something I'd be really passionate about doing. I'd love to go. There's a new dental school called Midwest University near us. University of Illinois, Chicago is still there. I would love to be a guest lecturer there and to just open these kids' eyes to what's really out there. I think it would be a really valuable service for these young kids.
Okay, great. Well, Dick, let's talk a little bit about your practice. Your practice has 43% overhead. How many employees do you have?
I have 4.
4 employees, okay. Tell me about the fundamentals of your practice. You talked about people skills in particular, but let's go into that in more detail. How do you treat people? What are the fundamentals that you have?
I think the most important thing that we do is to I emphasize to all my employees, as soon as someone walks in the door, you greet them with a smile and a hello. I've been in umpteen doctors' medical offices where they don't even acknowledge that you're standing in front of them a lot of the times.
No kidding.
Everybody's seen that. So we're big on please and thank you. I literally apologize to patients if I'm running behind. I value their time.
Do you do that personally?
I do that personally.
Excellent.
I also like to, without fail, I tell people, every patient I see, I'm glad to see them, and thank you for coming. I also like to get on the level with the little kids. I think every patient's important. I will ask 4-year-olds questions until they, you got to play with them a little bit because they're reluctant to answer, but it's all important. Those are the business fundamentals, the pleases, thank yous. I am generally happy to see them. They're providing my living, and you must convey that to people.
What about your schedule? How do you run that?
My schedule. Well, I work basically a 7-hour day on my long days. We do not take a lunch. That's something probably a lot of people do. I never did that from day one. My employees seem to be okay with it. We try to just have as few holes in our schedule as possible. I do not block schedule. And we do often consolidate. My office manager routinely calls people to fill holes or to eliminate dead time where hygienists are just sitting around.
Okay.
That goes a lot to overhead. I'm reluctant to pay a hygienist $40 an hour to sit and do nothing. I think probably every dentist feels that way, I'm guessing. But we just try to run a tight ship, and we do. When we're there, I do only work, well, now I work 20 hours a week, but for those 15 years, I worked 28 hours chair side. I have probably 2 to 3 hours a week of administrative or running around getting supplies and such, but we just try to run a tight ship, and when we're there, we're working, we're very efficient, and try to get the bottom line done.
Excellent. Next, I'd like to talk about monitoring your office finances, your practice finances. This is a big deal that you talked about to me earlier when we were discussing the article. How would a doctor who's numbers phobic, and there's a lot of you out there, how would a doctor who's really scared of the front desk, who really doesn't want to know what the numbers are in the practice, other than that his mortgage is being paid, that the practice loans are being taken care of, that the employees are getting their salaries on time, what would a doctor do that's easy for him, that's not scary, to have things taken care of so he'll do better as far as his finances or her finances?
I tell you what I did, Doug, worked for me and worked really well. About 8 years ago, I did what I thought was a smart thing, and I hired Pete Ackerman from formerly American Dental Sales. They have a new name now. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. Pete Ackerman is a CFP by credentials. He's a great guy. He analyzed 3 years of office numbers for me, and it told me where my numbers were, how they compared with national norms, and it identified strengths and weaknesses in percentages of gross. For instance, for me, I found out that I was spending too much for my CPA, and actually ended up getting a new CPA because of that. And actually I was spending way too much. But unless you do an office appraisal by a qualified professional, how do you really know your numbers? I wish I had done it earlier. I wish I'd have done it 10 years earlier. But how do you know? But it really gave me a barometer of where I stood and where I needed to go or where I needed to get to. I think that's essential. The other thing that we do all the time, every day, is my office manager and I go over every single entry that we bill and every single check or receipt. We go through that daily. I think that is something that you have to do.
Do you do that at the beginning of the day for the previous day or at the end of the day?
We do it at the end of the day before we go home.
And how long does that take?
It probably takes 2 minutes.
Yeah. You know, this is something I stress when I'm in offices, for people to sit down with the front desk and do exactly what you said. Who came in, what did they pay, if they didn't pay, why didn't they, and what are you going to do about it?
I've even heard stories. I actually have talked to people that, professionals who have someone else take their office receipts to the checks to the bank. I don't know who or why we would ever do that, but then bad things can happen there. You know, to me, you take your own money to the bank.
In other words, you take your money.
I take it.
The doctor takes the money.
I take the money.
Okay, it should always be somebody else other than the person that's taking the money from the patient. We're talking embezzlement here.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of articles on how to prevent that. The biggest way, in my mind, is to go through every receipt every day, and just to put your office manager on notice that, hey, you're looking at that, you know, with the fine-tooth comb every day without fail. And you don't check off that it's done until it's actually done, and you agree on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about debt for a minute here. Personal debt, practice debt. What are your thoughts on debt in particular?
Well, the more debt you have, the longer you're going to work, the more your quality of life can suffer in your retirement. It creates a tremendous amount of stress, and God knows dentists, especially the young dentists who are graduating with $250,000 in debt, we don't need any more stress than we already have. It's very difficult to be an entrepreneur and run your own business. I think 80% or more of dentists do that, or solo practitioners. We bear the burden of everything we do, all the decisions we have to make. It's a tough job. It's a very tough job. And we don't need any more stress than we already have. By having a lot of debt, you simply create more stress in your life, and I'm into, you know, who doesn't want a better quality of life? To me, you get there by minimizing your stress. One of the things that I love about having lower overhead, which I have in my case, is that I had been able to work less than 30 hours a week. From day one, I knew I'm not a workaholic. I'm pretty far from that. When I'm at the office, I really like to get after it. We're very efficient, but I knew I never wanted to work. I never wanted to work past 55. Unfortunately, the stock market performance added 3 years to that. But I swore I'd never work past 60, and I won't, other than doing something else like consulting and helping people with their overheads. But you have to have an end goal in sight and work backwards from that. I personally started really getting into this around age 35 and realized that you do the things that the government helps you with. For instance, profit sharing, 401k. My goal was always to max that out. It was a game for me. I wanted to play that game, and I played that game hard. I played it to win, and I wanted to max that out every year. In addition, the health savings account deduction is huge, and the deductions are even greater past age 50, where again the government allows you to put away even more money past age 50. In addition to that, if you can get your spouse, your wife, on the payroll and use the salary reduction situation that the government helps you with also, you again put more money away. But to get to those numbers, you have to control your overhead, and with the average 65 to 70% overhead that dentists have today, it's a big hill to climb. That's why I'm an advocate of low overhead, and yet to get there, it is a tough process, especially when you're already in it heavily with a lot of debt. My message is not for everyone, Doug, because I personally never wanted all the bells and whistles. Quite frankly, I never wanted to worry about having to pay for a huge office with 6 to 8 chairs. I personally never wanted that. But I'm here to say that my message is not for everyone. But I think that everyone can learn something about their overhead, especially with an appraisal. But there are ways to cut your overhead. And the bigger message is that all the articles I read talk about this is what your overhead is supposed to be. And I completely disagree with that. I'm
glad you brought that up, because I wanted to have you talk about that. Go ahead on that.
I've seen a lot of the good lecturers. I was really intrigued. I did Sterling Management early on, and a lot of people thought that was kind of a cultish thing. Although back in the day, his name was Greg Hughes, I believe. He was a pretty smart guy. I used to go to self-help seminars all the time and things like that. Another guy that really fascinated me was Rick Kushner's Lean and Mean seminars. Mm-hmm. He was a guy that advocated less than 50% overhead. And back then people were going, that's not possible. Well, it might be a very small percentage of people in our profession that have less than 50% overhead, but it is doable. It is absolutely doable. Do we have modest offices? Yes. I have a modest office. I have 3 chairs. I have a modest office. I have modest equipment. My goal was the game I wanted to play was to win the game where you could retire before 60 by saving, watching your personal spending, because you can't divorce your personal spending from your professional spending, and just living within your means. I had the good fortune of seeing Greg Stanley speak. I wasn't 1 year out of dental school. Greg Stanley, Whitehall Management, have a great deal of respect for him. He would tell you about percentages you should or shouldn't spend on mortgage, car payments, etc. And it all made sense to me, and I just try to do what the really smart guys, they were my mentors. Another great one is Brian Hufford. I read everything he says and try to follow that like textbook. Brian Hufford says save 20%. I've always done that, and that's the best advice I could give anybody. Try to figure out a way to align your personal spending with your professional spending. if you can't save 20, try to save 15, but you better save at least 10. You pick up any financial book, I don't care, any financial book in a Barnes & Noble, and it'll say you got to save at least 10%. And there are people out there not even doing that. They have runaway spending, runaway overhead, and it just creates a great deal of stress in your life. To me, that's not living.
As far as talking about different people, you read a lot. In fact, I'm at Dick's home right now, and he's got a ton of books out there on the kitchen table. I've been looking at his figures for the last 15 years. He wanted to prove to me that he actually has this overhead and has earned what he says he's earned, and it's incredibly consistent over the years. What are your favorite books? Who are your favorite authors? We've got a few more minutes here to talk about things.
I've read, I like, there are a couple of books by Mercer Global Advisors. I read those. I like Jane Bryant Quinn. My favorite book is by John Bogle from Vanguard. I forget the exact name of it.
The little book of common sense investing or something.
That's a fantastic book for anybody who really wants to read about the psychology of investing. Those are some of my favorite books. And I can tell you that I have had a CFP that I've worked with for 25 years. He has taught me a lot, educated me on the stock market, do's and don'ts and investments, and I've done an awful lot of reading and self-education. It's taken a long time, Doug. I've spent 20 years reading books on investing in the stock market, and it's not something you're going to learn overnight. It is absolutely a process. But if you want to have a good quality of life at the end of the day, when you're ready to retire, it behooves you to learn about investing and finance, because you can really hurt yourself if you don't know what you're doing. I strongly recommend you don't try to do it yourself. Listen to stock tips. I always like
listen to stock tips, or don't listen to stock tips?
Don't listen to stock
tips. There we go.
Don't, because to me that's a loser's game. I'm not a fan of active management. Have I paid a wrap fee? Yes, for a lot of my career. I'm on the verge of trying to get all my investments aligned with Vanguard. At the end of the day, I want to be there, but it's taken me a long time to be able to have the comfort level to say, okay, now I can do it myself. It's taken a long time. One of the greatest things the CFP ever did for me, when the NASDAQ market took off in 2000, I was ready to throw 25% of my portfolio at the tech stocks, and he said no more than 5%. So I think I put about 4% into the tech stocks, and within 4 to 5 months I lost 70% of that, and I was thrilled that at that time that's all that I threw at that, because that was a big loser. The other thing that we talked about a little bit earlier, Doug, was that you asked me what did I do when the market tanked in 2000, 2002, and then again in 2008 and 9. And I would tell you that was a terribly scary time. I'm sure for anybody who had any significant dollars, terribly scary time. And what I did was I just held the stuff that I had. I was adamant that I couldn't sell the losers. Just wrote it out basically. Again, I've read a lot of anecdotal stories on people that cashed out or headed for the exits. You cannot do that.
Exactly.
When your stocks are down 50 to 60, 70%, you cannot sell a loser. Because the stock market historically, traditionally, always comes back. It's a matter of time. And I told my wife at that time, the last crash in 09, when I don't know about anybody else, but I lost almost 50% of my money. It was terribly scary, and I told her at that time, I said, I'm bound and determined. I will work as long as I have to work to get my money back. And that's what I did, And the really cool thing was, within 2 years, the market was 90% back.
We're back where we started. Exactly.
And at that time that happened, I said, man, I wish I owned 4 or 5 condos instead of being in the market. Well, look what happened to real estate.
Yeah.
That would not have been the right thing to do.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we're going to end on that note, Dick, because we're out of time here. So thank you very much for presenting a lot of wisdom for us today. Again, Dick is in suburban Chicago. He has a wonderful home here. So Dick is not a spendthrift at all at home. He's made a lot of money in his dental practice. He has low overhead. He has a nice house, nice cars, and he has a lot of good things to say. What's your phone number again for people to get in touch with you, Dick?
My phone number is 630-800-6191.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time, and if you people want to get in touch with Dick as far as talking about your situation, having him talk to a group, please just give him a call. Thanks so much for listening in today, and thank you very much for having me in your home.
Thank you, Doug.
It's wonderful. It's a
my pleasure.
beautiful house.
My pleasure. Thank you.